Welcome back to H-Log Gaming. In today's video, we are going to be ranking Slayers, and let's get right into it. So, somebody's got to be at the bottom of the tier list, and unfortunately for this list, it is Mulan. Let's take a look at the kit. The reason I put her last is because her main debuffs are on her ultimate, so you can't use those as much, most likely in the beginning of the game, because you got to get your 1200. I mean, you start at 325, which isn't bad. I did consider that, but just having these only here and nothing up here to debuff. Although, if you do read the passive, right, you're going to hit 20% stronger. I did take that into consideration, but it didn't seem like enough to really bump her up on the list. If you do pull her, though, I think this is a good kit so far. Not great, not super strong, but not bad either. So not a bad pull if you get it. Okay, and number 9 is going to be Artemis. The reason I ranked her above Mulan is because of this defense down on the basics. So you can use that regularly as opposed to Mulan where her debuffs were on the ultimate. This is more expensive and you start off with less, so I did kind of account for that. It does hit harder, quite a bit harder, and if enemies are already dead, it hits even harder, so that's why I put her above Mulan. I think her passive is a bit better, the 50% after defeating. Granted, you have to kill them, whereas Mulan, you just had the vanish, and then you get 20%. I just feel like this kid is a little bit stronger, so that's why I put her above. And I should mention, I forgot this at the beginning of the video, as it says right here, all these things are subject to change. I don't think we're going to see a ton of change in the skills, unless something is like pretty broken in the game and they have to change it, but I would say multipliers are pretty much all up in the air. Leader bonuses might change as well. That's probably a bit more set as well, but we'll just have to wait and see. But keep that in mind. All this is subject to change. All right, and number 8 is going to be Raw. I kind of cut his head off there when I was making this. I didn't notice that, so sorry about that, but that is Raw. Okay, so the reason I put Raw at number 8 is you can see pretty consistently you're getting this chance to place Blaze or some type of debuff. So that's a bit stronger than the other kits. And he has, these multiple things that he scales off of, whereas the other two only had attack. Because of that, I think having more options makes him a bit of a better choice. He still is not the best. The ultimate 1,000 is cheap, but you start off with 0, so it's actually more work to get his than Mulan's, but less than Artemis. This passive right here, the next ultimate by 5% when a blaze, activates, expires, or removed, is nice. 5% isn't huge. I mean, it will be happening pretty regularly, right? But that's why he's number 8. All right, and number 7 is going to be Morgan Le Fay. All right, her kit is pretty crazy. The reason I put her a bit lower, though, is because sort of some of the randomness of this kit. I do like it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But with some of the randomness, it may kind of screw up, if you're trying to really min-max as far as speed of runs go, if she doesn't place something. So, her A1 attacks all enemies, places vulnerable to, which is great on all enemies, and has a chance to activate a random debuff. Okay, so we're going to go down here now to the core. Again, attacks all enemies 3 times. Each hit has up to 50, can be tomed up to 75 to place Aether Burn, Blaze, or Acid on the target for 2 turns or 1 stack of bleed at random. It's fun. I like it. You're going to be putting a lot of debuffs out, but you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. So when you really are trying to do something specific, it might be difficult. This might turn out to be crazy overpowered as well. So I might be wrong and she should be higher on the list. I do like her. And then as for ultimate, again, the overall damage is going to be, or I should say the bumped up damage is going to be a bit random. As you see, it can remove those. And then increases the damage inflicted by 25%. If 20 or more debuffs are removed, increases his hero's turn meter by 100%. So all that's great. And I understand why this isn't 100 based on the ultimate, because then it could be way too strong, right? And using her with probably a disruptor that's going to put out a lot of debuffs, that's probably going to be a good combo to possibly, get her turn meter back to 100. So yeah, this has the potential to be very strong. And again, she's above like the bottom two because you have two ways to scale damage, whereas they only have one. And then again, the passive, very cool, but also random. You know, the Aether Burn does your divinity, the Blaze does damage, and Acid increases turn meter. And then the Bleed, you know, you heal for 1,000% accuracy. That sounds very good. But then when you read this, I'm not entirely sure, right? So you have the 75, let's say you tome it up to 75% chance to place one of these for 2 turns, or 1 stack of Bleed at random. Now, does that mean the Bleed is like also 75% chance out of these 3? So it's like a 50-50 coin flip for each hit that it's, you know, so you're going to do hit 1, Aether Burn or Bleed, Blaze or Bleed, Acid or Bleed. That's kind of how I'm understanding it. So potentially, right, you could have a lot of healing or you could have no healing, but a very cool kit. Okay, number 5 is our big bad God of War, Ares. Okay, for Ares, I think he's gonna, you know, be pretty good for PvP or even possibly wave clearing with this core right here. Attacks all enemies, ignores shield and barrier on each target. If the target attack is a strong hit, remove shield and barrier from each target. If an enemy is defeated, increase this hero's divinity by 10%. So that is a very good skill, very strong core ability. And you can obviously see how it would be good for PvP if a team is, you know, trying to, I guess it'd be a go second team maybe with shield or barrier. And then they're waiting to, you know, hit you hard the second time. So if you pop this right away, could be very good. I also like his basic, you know, attack one enemy 3 times and decreases the target's defense by 2%, stacking up to 10 times. Each strong hit also decreases the target's initiative by 5%. We'll have to see if there's some mechanics that sort of block that on bosses, because that potentially could be good for some dungeon bosses, right? What would stacking up to 10 times? So that would be 20% defense on a boss. That could be pretty good. But again, I think they might put something in place to block that. Or this might be a skill that they change, put a, you know, sort of in parentheses afterwards, does not apply to bosses. So be aware of that. That's kind of a guess though at this point. And then his ultimate, attack one enemy 2 times. Each hit ignores protect, intercept, immortal, and ward. That's pretty good to ignore all those, right? So it's kind of, those are all different ways to protect a target and he can get through that. And then if the attack is a strong hit, also ignores 20% of the target's defense. Keep in mind, he's not eternal, so he is susceptible to weak hits. So that's kind of why he's, you know, mid-tier on this list. Still, I think, solid for certain things. We'll have to wait and see if this is possibly good against bosses. And like I said, this could be for wave clearing, either PvE or PvP. But let's not forget about the passive as well. Each time an enemy receives a debuff, increase this hero's chance to strong hit by 5% on their next ability. So that kind of is making up for this possible affinity issue. It's not too strong. Well, actually, it could be very strong, right? Each time an enemy receives a debuff. So if you had, I don't know, 5 debuffs, 25%, okay, that's actually pretty strong. But still, I think he's, you know, where he should be, right in the middle of the tier list here. Okay, and then number 5 is going to be Lamashtu. Not really sure if I'm saying that right, but I think that's how you say it. All right, with Lamashtu, we're going to actually start off with the passive because I think it's a pretty good passive for any damage dealer. When this hero defeats an enemy, they explode, inflicting damage 100% attack to all enemies, which ignores 100% defense but cannot be critical. So that's pretty strong. The not critical makes sense, right? If it was critical, it would be probably too powerful, honestly. And again, maybe they would put something like that on an Eternal, but it's not an Eternal. So, but yeah, that's why they're number 4. Pretty strong right there. But let's look at the rest of the skills real quick. Attack one enemy 2 times. If a target is defeated, increase the damage of the next AoE attack by 50%, which plays into the core. Attacks all enemies. If this ability defeats 3 or more enemies, resets its cooldown, increases the hero's divinity by 200. So you're seeing very much how that plays in together, and even with this on top of it. So it's a very well-designed kit as far as synergy goes, I'd say. And then the ultimate, one of the cheaper ones at 1,000, but you start at 0. Place attack up 2 on this hero for 2 turns, then attacks all enemies. For each enemy already defeated, summons a demon of pestilence, which explodes on impact, triggering soul eruption with 50, tomed up to 70% chance, placing vulnerable 2 and acid on all enemies for 2 turns. Anytime I see acid, I'm thinking could possibly be good for PvP. Obviously this kit is really built for damage. It does seem PvE right now, but it might turn out to be good in PvP. If you can get, one of the enemies down pretty quick, you're going to really start rolling with this hero. But I do see this working better in PvE, but we'll have to wait till the game comes out and we'll test it. All right, number 4, who actually got moved up, is Hell. All right, and the reason Hell got moved up, normally I had her about number 7 in this list, but this Eternal right here moves her way up on the list because she is the only Eternal in the pool for the Godforge Quests. These skills, I don't remember what they were in alpha, did all hit pretty well. I had her one of the waves, I can't remember. I think I did get her wave 3 as well, but I didn't really use her as much because I had Zeus and he was the king of gods as he is in his lore in the alpha as well. But let's take a look at this. Attack one enemy. If the target is under curse, inflict additional 5% of the target's max HP. So again, if you paired her with somebody who's really putting curse out, we'll see on the core she does have it, but if you could guarantee this by using somebody else, this becomes very strong with the max HP. And again, we'll have to see. I wouldn't expect that they would put something in here blocking this from bosses, but bosses might have something that essentially blocks curse on them or removes it right away, so might be good for bosses, might not. We'll have to wait and see on the different dungeons and boss encounters how that works out. The core attacks all enemies with an 80 tomed up to 100% chance to place curse for 2 turns, which really synergizes well with the basic, right? And then attacks all enemies, revive all dead enemies, and apply shade on them to revive an enemy which cannot be resisted or blocked. Does not work on bosses or minions. If a target is a boss or minion, place defense down on the target instead. So defense down 2. So defense down 2 is pretty strong, and the fact that it's 2 turns is a pretty good debuff. Not expensive, not super cheap. It does start at 300, so I'd say mid-tier cost as far as ultimates go, so not that bad of a skill either. But the bosses and minions, it does make sense though, right? Not being able to shade a boss. The minions, that kind of hurts. I would have liked to have been able to do that. We also don't know too much about shade yet. We haven't seen it used at all, so it could get changed how it kind of works, because right now to me it seems almost like if you could get shade on everyone, you sort of remove them from the battlefield in a way as far as the waves for PvE go, but we'll have to wait and see once this shakes out. Then the passive, defeating an enemy, increases the turn meter fill effects on this hero by 20%, stacking up to 5 times. That's not that great because it's turn meter effects, not the actual turn meter, if I'm understanding it correctly. Obviously, if she kills a bunch of people, you can boost her up, but in what scenario, I'm trying to think, will she kill a bunch of enemies, then you need to boost her up? If she's just laying everyone out, you're essentially going to be done with the wave. So that one, I'm just not sure. I do not feel like that's a very good passive, but maybe there'll be a good use for it. Maybe there'll be some type of sort of endless waves mode or something where this stacking up to 5 times becomes super important. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, number 3 is going to be our boy Rajin. Okay, so unlike Fujin, I think his kit is better standalone, but pairing him with Fujin does make him a bit stronger. We'll just start with the ultimate here. Cheaper one on the 1,000 side. Attacks all enemies 3 times. Increases his hero's divinity by 10% for each enemy defeated. If Fujin is on the team, also increases his divinity by the same amount. Now the reason this works well is because Fujin's ultimate places debuffs on the enemy. So that's why this really synergizes well. If he can if you get it timed right, where Fujin goes first and gets all those debuffs on him, and then obviously he can attack debuffs, making the enemies weaker. Okay, the basic attack 3 times at random. If an enemy is under a debuff, again, Fujin related, place barrier on this hero. If Fujin is on the team, he will also gain barrier and will join the attack. So you don't necessarily need Fujin though for the debuff bonus. Pretty much any debuffer will work. So pairing him with somebody who places debuffs is going to be fairly easy. So that becomes a decent skill, but it's only barrier on him. So not super strong. All right, then the core attacks all enemies 2 times. The first hit has a 75 tomed up to 100% chance to apply Hex 2 on the target for 2 turns. The second hit has a 75 up to 100 when tomed out chance to apply Defense down 2 on each target for 2 turns. That's a pretty good debuff skill. Just starting out 75% without any tomes. So that's why I'm saying his kit alone, as far as not paired with Fujin, I think it's stronger than Fujin's on his own. And the passive, when an enemy receives a debuff, shock them, inflicting damage, 100% attack, which cannot be critical and ignores defense. This can trigger up to 1 time per enemy turn. That's pretty strong, so that's why he's number 3, because again, you don't need Fujin. He's designed to be work with them, but if you just have somebody else doing debuffs, that's why I put him in number 3. All right, then number 2 is going to be Sung Wukong. Speaking of strong passives, let's start there. Place an immortal on this hero for 2 turns and receiving fatal damage for the first time. Also has a 50% chance to join an ally's attack. So that's a very good passive, right? Keeping anyone alive. You can compare this to Hercules. His also heals him, so you don't get that benefit here, but you do get the ally attack, which is so far pretty good. We'll have to see if they turn this down a bit, his initial, or not his initial, his basic attack multiplier there. I know I'm going kind of against the grain with him only having one way to increase his attack damages based on attack as of right now, but as we'll see, the rest of his kit is pretty good. Attack 1 enemy, then increase this hero's divinity by 5% if joining an attack. Increase divinity by an additional 5%, also mirror 1 random buff from the target. So not exactly a buff steal, more of a buff copy, but that's pretty good. And then, the divinity by 5%, so you're going to get to this ultimate quicker. The core, place attack up 2 on this hero for 2 turns, then attacks all enemies 2 times. For each buff on this hero, increases the damage inflicted by 10%. And again, with his basic, if you're attacking somebody with the buff and he mirrors it, because you got this 50% right here, that's a very good potential as a large damage increase there. So good synergy again. Then the ultimate attack, 8 times at random. Each hit has a 35 tomed up to 50% chance to heal this hero by 8% of the damage inflicted and decrease the target's turn meter by 8%. If a target is hit more than 5 times, additional hits inflict 50% reduced damage. In my initial review, this is why I said he wasn't so great at bosses, possibly. That's obviously why this is here. So you can't just decrease a boss's turn meter and have them never take a turn. I suspect, I don't think they'll add something in here, sort of the caveat does not apply to bosses and minions, but we could see bosses that are sort of immune to multiple hit techniques, like only the first hit counts or something like that. So we'll have to see. He might be okay for bosses. I think overall he's a great damage dealer. With the mirroring the buffs and joining an ally attack, he's also possibly good at PvP. I was initially thinking PvE, but now that I'm kind of reading through all this again, has some PvP potential as well because of this immortal, right? You'd have to have a skill that ignores that vis-a-vis Ares. That's why I said he's possibly going to be good at PvP. But yeah, he's number 2. So obviously we know who number 1 is, but let's go to the list. Number 1 is going to be Cizin for me. All right, the reason Cizin is number 1 for me is if you look at all these, right now at least, very good multipliers and all attacks all enemies. And his basic, 40% tomed up to 60, has a chance to place acid. And again, like I said, anyone who places acid, I'm kind of thinking could be good for PvP. We'll have to wait and test them. But with these current multipliers and attacks all enemies and acid, I think it's going to be good for PvP. Also going to be good for PvE with attacks all enemies on everything, just clearing waves. Okay, let's take a look at the core attacks all enemies with a 75 up to 100% chance to place Blaze 2 on each target for 2 turns. Solid skill, good damage. Okay, the ultimate 1600, getting close to the expensive side. You know, there's not many that I've seen that are more expensive than this. There's a few. Starting with the 275 isn't bad, but still on the bit more expensive side. But attacks all enemies, then activates acid and blaze on each target. Also places precision on this hero for 1 turn. Okay, couldn't remember what precision was, but here it is. Guarantees attacks are strong hits. So very strong on his kit to add that precision on him for 1 turn. It is after you do the ultimate, which you would ideally want it on, but again, with his attack all enemies on every single skill, this does become a great buff on him. Then the passive, if an enemy is under acid, reduce their incoming healing by 50%. That feels very PvP to me. Hence why I was thinking he could be good for PvP as well. Again, these are just my opinions. Okay, down below, let me know where you agree and disagree. And if you've made it this far, if I could ask you to give me a thumbs up. I think that's been helping to push some of the videos out to a wider audience. So those of you that are doing that, I always appreciate that, you know, helping me get out there, get some more subscribers. I got a few within the past week or two, so that's always positive as well. And this has been H-Lock. Thanks for watching.